Welcome to Deal Nation. On the show today, we're joined by Mike Hambright. Mike, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, man?
Good. So I'm not even really sure where to start. Usually it would be, we're joined by guest name, founder of company name. But in your case, we're talking about founder of FlipNerd, founder of the investor Fuel Mastermind group, founder or co-founder of Investor Machine, and I think about 100 other REI related initiatives that we
There's a
may
few
or may
things in
not.
there. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's been I started real estate investing in 2008, so it was about 17 years, but it's evolved. I mean, it's evolved for sure. I started off as just wholesaling and fixing flipping houses and keeping rentals. And I think like a lot of entrepreneurs, there's kind of scope creep. It's like then we started keeping some rentals, so now we need to have a rental company. And then I started doing some coaching, and then I started the mastermind, and then I started the podcast, all the different podcasts. And so it's just like things got bolted on over time. And I think in hindsight it looks like there was some plan, but there was not. It was just a bunch of forks in the road. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I didn't mention that's kind of come and gone, that just didn't stick or didn't work out. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
what there's no short version of the story, but it's been an interesting ride.
Well, I want to get into this though, because it's very humble of you to say that it just sort of happened. It was forks in the road. But the truth is, like, if you backtrack this, you've been a pioneer in a lot of those initiatives. You were, founding a mastermind group, an influential one, when they didn't really exist, at least not on a national level, nationwide. So you really kind of pioneered there. You pioneered with some of the podcasting and the media. You pioneered with as a service provider early on, as like a high level data provider, for instance. Like you've really pioneered in different areas. So I do want to kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But I have a tangent question for you. Have you ever been to Munich, Germany?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so did did you go into the beer halls, and you go into the beer halls and there's like that
Yeah,
table
we
right in
had
the
a
front?
yeah, for our mastermind, we have what we call fuel retreats. So we do a few different vacations a year. And actually last year there were about 40 of us that went to Oktoberfest in Germany, in Munich. Yeah. Did you know that, or
Okay,
are you just
amazing.
saying?
So no, so here's the reason I ask. For
Okay.
everyone listening, if you're not aware of this, you go into these beer halls in Munich, and there's this table front and center, right in the front, and they're basically legacy seats. Like you have to have been in the community, like important. You're like one of the guys if you have one of these seats. And as a tourist, you have to kind of walk past them, and like that's the table, that's the high seat, right? And in
Okay.
REI, like you're that guy, like you're at that table
Okay.
in the front. There's a handful of other people I can think of that have just been like, you want to get into REI, you got to walk past Mike and a few other people at the big table in order to get in. So, it's like I started this 6 years ago with launch control, maybe even a little longer at this point. Time creeps up, but I mean, you
Yeah.
were already at the table 6 years ago. So
Mm,
I'd love to kind of
appreciate it.
backtrack a little bit to where you started to really see yourself as somebody who was interested in more than just the single pipeline profit structure and wanted to get involved in other things.
Yeah, I'll say, when I first, like, to go way back. So when my wife and I first started in 2008, we kind of refer to ourselves as corporate refugees. Like I got fired from a dream job with like a Fortune 100 company. My wife left her job as a consultant to have our son, who just turned 18, actually a couple days ago. And we just kind of, we did well in corporate America, but I went from like getting fired to a startup that was flying high, and then they filed for bankruptcy. And I was like, man, I work too hard to like not have control over where things are going. And at that point, and my wife was a well-paid consultant, but quite frankly, she hated her job. Like, it was 100% travel. She was like taking a suitcase to work in case she had to travel that day. Like, it was just a rough life. And so when you're young, that feels glamorous, but you get to a point where you're like, man, this is kind of getting old. And so, I'd always been entrepreneurial, I guess, but I'd never really started anything meaningful. And I think we were just at a crossroads. I mean, that was late 2007. So the market was starting to take a downturn. Now, the truth is, we were a little bit naive about what was going on in the real estate market, but the job market was taking a downturn. So it was kind of like, am I going to go get another job where I also feel like I have no control and something goes south a couple of years from now, or are we going to just kind of bet on ourselves? And so that was the beginning of the real estate investing, and we flipped hundreds of houses, but I would say and we were doing about 60 to 70 houses a year for a lot of years, mostly fix and flip, a little bit of wholesaling as well, and some buy and holds. But I'll say after we kind of had our head down and just cranked for a couple of years, after we'd done about 100 deals, I'd say, like, it started to feel a little lonely, because we went from like, I went from a 35,000 person company to like a 4-person company, and and at the time, and back then, let's say 2009 or 10, um, social media wasn't what it is today. There were essentially no podcasts at that point. I was one of the first 6 or 7 people with a real estate podcast, and that was 2012. And so there just really wasn't as many ways to kind of socialize, I guess. I mean, the main way was go to the local RIA club, right? Which I did. And then I just, I was probably, so when my last, the startup that I worked for was a tech company. And so it was the first tech company that I worked for. I was only there for about 18 months, but they were on the cutting edge of a lot of technology. And then when I got into real estate, it was like, the Wild West, no technology. There were 0 CRMs when I started. Like, we were using spreadsheets and whiteboards, right? And so there was this period where social media started to come on. I hired a young videographer to like start meeting me at houses to kind of create some videos online. I was a terrible marketer at the time, but probably a little bit. I won't say I was the first person to do that, but it was definitely early on in that trend, right? And and then I started the podcast, and that was kind of the opening the door to, like, for me, getting outside of the Dallas Fort Worth market, which was kind of probably 2010 or 2011. And that started a whole another series of things over time, I guess.
How were you, like, how was that even working in 2012 or 2011? Because, recording a podcast now, quite honestly, is easy, right? Like, the
Yeah.
technology is like set up for it. So
Yeah.
did you have to make an investment in that? Did you have to do some kind of self-education to
Well,
figure out how to do it? Or,
for the podcast,
yeah.
it went like this. Like, if I look back, it was like, they're just stepping stones, right? I mean, I think that's how
Mhm.
everybody's business works. Like, I stepped on this stone, and then something happened, and then I went this way, and they're kind of all these like forks in the road. But in probably 2010, I would say, 2009 or 10, I started to do these live rehab events. So I was rehabbing so many houses at the time, and we were rehabbing 5 to 10 houses at any time, and living in my truck, just driving around, checking
Yeah.
on stuff constantly. Um, and I don't want to say too much more to date myself, but it was just like there was way less technology then. And
Yeah.
so I just said, you know what? Like, I was a sponsor at a RIA club to try to like find new investors and things like that. And I just said, what if, like, I just have people come watch me rehab a house? So I started this thing called Rehab Live, where they would meet me at a house. I would always generally pick one that was like a hoarder house, or was fire damaged, or like there was going to be a major transformation there. So I kind of picked like the ugliest ones, right? And then I'd say like, hey, sign up. Since I was a sponsor of this real estate club, I had access to their list, which was, I don't know, 500 or 600 people. So I could
Yeah.
email their list and say, hey, I'm going to do a rehab live. Like, you'll meet at the beginning before we've done anything, in a couple of weeks when we're putting it back together, and then uh, by week 4 or 5 when the project's done and we're about to put it on the market. And it was amazing. It was just an amazing networking opportunity. A lot of people that are dreamers and kind of want to do those things were just blown away at, like, how fast things move, and how did you buy this, where'd you get the lead from, how do you finance it, like all those things. And that turned into ultimately kind of coaching. So a lot of people would say, like, hey, I mean, a lot of things came from it. Can I lend you money to do? I'd like to. I don't want to do the work, but I could be a lender. Or can you show me how to do this?
Or,
Or like, things started to kind of come from that, and that kind of opened my eyes to collaborations on stuff. Right? Like, I think up to that point, I was very much like in my foxhole, just doing my own thing, feeling like somebody's gonna take something from me if I give away too many secrets, and was very kind of close-minded. And then that really opened my world to collaboration, to where today I don't do anything that's not a collaboration or anything that's not with somebody else, for the most part.
Sure. And I think it's interesting that you and your wife both came from a Fortune 100 or big corporate background, because it's a
Yeah.
little bit ironic that big corporations are often thought of as being like really inefficient, right? Like too much weight at the
Yeah.
top or whatever. But you work in those structures, and I'm a date myself. It teaches you how everything Voltrons together, right? How you
Yeah. Yeah.
understand really clearly how HR affects the entire company, how
Right.
marketing connects with sales, how sales connects with customer support, how customer support connects with branding and retention, and you understand how all of these things kind of bolt on together.
That's
And
right.
because you understand that, like, that the real estate investment industry's gotten better, but it's still really inefficient
Sure.
in comparison to more like mature business models, right? There's still lots of
Yeah.
gaps that can be filled. And when you come
Yeah.
from that corporate background, you're able to see that. And I think that you've done a really good job of not just seeing a gap and fixing it for your own company, but seeing a gap and saying, hey, everybody, I've got a solution for this, or I've got a fix for this, which is, I think again, you've been a pioneer in a lot of these spaces.
Yeah, it's the case for scale. Like when you have a small business, a lot of people that are listening to this might be solopreneurs or have a small team, but you don't have a lot of redundancy. So inevitably, as the owner, you're wearing, if you like look at your org chart, your name is on like most of the seats, right? And so you just have to like, it's the case for scale. It's like there's a lot of people that are trapped as self-employed. Like they might be the CEO and they own the company, but they're still doing a lot of the stuff. And not to poo-poo that, but it's like what happens is a lot of people get trapped in essentially a job. And now they might be making more money than they ever have before. They feel good because they're the decision maker, which is fine. But and if you want to be trapped there, that's fine. If you don't feel like the word trapped is is a good word, that's fine too. But the truth is if something happens to you or you go on vacation, or God forbid someone in your family gets sick or whatever, the business is going to suffer. And so I think that's what we do in our mastermind, is help people kind of level up to the next level, because it allows them to truly be a business owner and build something that can run. Now, there's people that are like, if you can't leave for a year and come back and your business isn't better off, like you're not a real business owner. That's a little bit extreme, but you know, could you, like, at least a stepping stone, can you get to the point to where you could leave for a week or two and maybe reply to a couple of texts and things are not falling apart? I mean, that's kind of where most people at least want to be. They don't want to necessarily be out of the business completely, but they don't want to be on call 24/7 either.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna catch a bunch of flack for saying this, but I think one of the it's a slippery slope in real estate investment, the term generational wealth. And
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of people that get into this business, and what they really want is exactly what you just described. Because if they're in a business, that business you just described, where they're able to leave for like a couple of weeks and maybe answer a few emails, and they come back, and maybe there was a little slippage, but not everything fell apart, and they
Yeah.
made some money in the meantime, right? That business model, most of those businesses are producing something like 300K a year or more. Who's making that in their corporate job? Who's making that in their 9 to 5 job? Nobody,
Not
right?
many.
So
Right.
that, yeah, not many. So that alone is a massive success. So I think
Yeah.
that this idea of like from there, well, you got to scale, you got to scale, you got to scale. That's like, well, you got to buy a house, you got to have kids, you got to get married, you got to. You don't got it, right? Like you
Mm.
can stop right there if that's your comfort space.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there are, when you think of, like, I use Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant a lot. Like people that are, you're either an employee or you're self-employed or you're a business owner or you have a passive business that runs without you. So
Right.
uh, I, a lot of entrepreneurs, and we kind of talked, you kind of teed it up at the beginning, is I have multiple businesses and they're in different stages of that. So there's some businesses that I'm way too involved in, but I do have a bunch of, I mean, having a successful business or successful businesses has allowed me to put stuff into more passive investments that do run without me. And so, like I've taken, for example, I've taken some of my profits and I've put it into large multifamily syndications, or we're buying a bunch of notes. Now we've gotten into buying notes and things like that. And those very much are passive. And so I don't think you have to take your one business and build it so that it's so big that it runs itself. You can take the profits from that and put it into something else, because there are very much like active businesses and passive businesses or investments. And so I don't think it has to be the same company.
Yeah, no, I agree. So let's talk about some of the businesses that you have that investors can participate in, because it's really great that depending on where they are in their business, there's something in sort of your umbrella suite of businesses that I think will positively impact them.
Hmm.
But let's give a high level kind of review overview of like the core businesses, and then we'll really talk about like how that fits investors and at what stage it fits.
Yeah, yeah. So I have investments. We have rental portfolios and multifamily and notes and stuff like that. And then on the active side, for me, we have my mastermind, Investor Fuel, that you're a part of, and you guys have been a part of for actually quite some time. And
Mhm.
that's a community of hundreds of professional real estate investors and service providers and folks like that. And so that really is an amazing community. Um, Out of that, about 5 years ago, I launched with a partner, Investor Machine. That's a lead, kind of a done for you lead generation company. So we basically, our kind of ultimate product is direct mail, but we very much are kind of more like like a marketing partner. So kind of a fractional CMO. So we really help people dial in their marketing and even on the sales side as well. That's Investor Machine. And then I've always, not always, but since like 2009 or 10, had some variation of coaching. And so, kind of at this moment where we've rebranded the coaching as Investor Fuel Club. Actually, I'm not sure if you even knew this, but it used to be under the
I didn't know.
FlipNerd brand and some other things. And I'm kind of marrying together the mastermind with coaching, because I think the traditional coaching model is kind of dead. And so we're kind of turning this more into more of an apprenticeship type model, where we take new investors and we pair them with our professional investors in the mastermind, and they get to do deals together. And so our
Oh,
members might actually, certainly our members can help with dispositions and funding and stuff like that, but we're also moving in the direction of they can actually even help with the acquisitions. So it's really because we have members all over the country. So we're just pairing up like, hey, who's in Cleveland? Well, we got two members there and they want to do deals with students. And so we're kind of marrying together the coaching world that used to be completely isolated with the pro level investor world that wants to find ways to JV with people on deals. And honestly, a lot of my pro level mastermind members, a lot of them want to coach, but they don't want a coaching business. Like, so truthfully, without getting into a lot of details here, it's a lot of work. Like some people can look from the outside and say like, oh, that's just some slimy guru, and there are some out there. Don't get me wrong, but a true coaching model is a business. You have to have customer support and sales and marketing and like everything else, just like another business. And so a lot of them like to coach. They like to give back, but they kind of, I like to say, they want to be more of a grandparent than a parent. Like they can kind of come hang out with the kids, get them sugared up, and just drop the mic and walk out whenever they want. Because we run the coaching program, they're just supplementing it by partnering on deals and sharing their insights periodically.
no, I love that. I've actually intended to do this with launch control for a long time because we've got
Mm,
really high level investors that are using the platform. And then we've got a lot of early stage investors that are still learning and they're in the same market and they don't know
yeah.
each other. And so there's a clear opportunity for mentorship. So there you go again, pioneering things, beating me to the punch. Appreciate that. No, but I think I agree. I think it's a great idea, and I definitely want to offline. We'll talk about that more, um, because one of the things that I think is really important, kind of what we were just saying about like generational wealth versus like picking your stopping point, is whether you're investing in distressed properties, you're investing in land, there are tons of tiny little micro niches in there, right?
Yeah.
Where, the obvious ones like Pace Morby and doing, subject to, and then there are people that specialize in novations. And then there are people that are really great in, as certain types of houses in certain neighborhoods in certain markets. And,
Sure.
it's really about like, sometimes you don't even know what your buy box is going to be let alone kind of what your business scope is going to be. You just want to do deals, right? So
Right.
being able to kind of talk through what you want in your life and then match up with the right mentor in your market that's going to be able to show you kind of a niche business model, because you can't do it all, right? You have to kind of focus a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just such a step ahead, you know.
Yeah, that is the fundamental problem, I think, with coaching. And I'm guilty of this before. I've coached thousands of people, and the model, which is the same thing I learned, is let me show you how to be an expert at everything. And it's hard. Like you have to be good at, lead gen. You have to be good at acquisitions. You have to be good at dispo. You got to find buyers lists. You got to like do all these things. You have to be good at managing a rehab, managing contractors, HR, payment processes for paying everybody, hiring and recruiting a team. Like it's just not realistic, right? And so that's why we've kind of come up with the idea. And I think real estate is one of those unique things where a lot of people that get started are led to believe that like you can get rich quick. Like let's get rich quick. Let's on your first deal you're going to crush it. And so in our programs now with our coaching, I generally kind of send the message of like, look, we can't promise anything. So we're not out there saying you're going to get rich. Like it's going to be hard work. But here's what I would recommend. Like focus on getting rich for sure and not quick. Like learn first. Be willing to learn. And I have an 18-year-old son, so I'm talking to him about this. Like, look, he's not going to college. He's not probably going to work for us, at least for the next few years, because he needs to work for somebody else, quite frankly. But I've just
Sure.
said, look, focus on building skills. Like don't get rich quick. Don't worry about getting rich quick. Just build skills that allow you to get rich for sure, and be willing to play the long game, because everything that's worthwhile really takes time. I mean, you could hit the lottery or whatever, but that's just not realistic. So if you want to build up
Yeah.
a skill, whether it's real estate or anything, like be willing to spend, if people are willing to go off to college and spend 4 to 8 years getting an education with no real skills, just some knowledge, like you should be willing to recreate a program for you to kind of get an education with just an informal program of how to become an expert real estate investor and entrepreneur. Be willing to not make a ton of money for a while and learn from people that can really help you level up your skills so that you can get rich for sure, but just not fast.
Yeah, and there I hear two things a lot from the really successful investors, and they sound incongruous, but I think they're both very much true, which is one, it's not easy money. It's not going to happen overnight, right? And then the second one is you put in a solid 18 months, 24 months, almost everybody makes money, right?
Yeah.
And I think both are true. It's just there's a lot of attrition in between that, and
Yeah.
the people that fall off say, oh, it didn't work or it doesn't work. But those that can via other income coming in, some patience, some persistence, almost everybody that sticks with it for a certain amount of time ends up making
Yeah.
money, and
I
and
can
they
tell you
can
a few different types
grow
of
from there.
people. Like I've seen people that come in and they're just not willing to do the work. Like despite no matter how many times we say it's a lot of work, it's harder than they thought and they give up. So most people quit before they ever do a deal. They just quit on themselves. And part of that
Mhm.
is our society today. People expect immediate gratification. Like they want to push a button and have everything happen. It's like, it's not,
Yeah.
that could happen, but that's just not the real world. Then there's the people that have really fast early success. And that is not great because then they think it's easy and then it gets hard and then they quit because they just had some early luck but they didn't have that foundation, right? And we both know people that have been pretty active on social media, like they're just a roaring success out of nowhere. And I've seen some people crash and burn after a couple of years because the market shifts or something changes or they lose a key person on their team and they just don't have
Sure.
that foundation because they got rich quick and it all comes kind of tumbling down without that foundation. So once you get to a
Yeah.
point to where you in this business or anything for a while, like I've said, I'm at a point now, like just for some perspective, and other people can do this too. I don't have any magic. It's just, I'm a honey badger. Like I just don't give up. Right. And so I'm like, if you, the best part about entrepreneurship is when you get to a point where, if I lost everything tomorrow or somebody took everything away from me, I could recreate what it took me 17 years in like 17 months because I know where the bodies are buried. I know how to do this. I know I have these resources and these skills and truthfully, the confidence to build something. You can do it way faster if you had to do it again. And that allows you to take more risk because you're like, I'm not worried about losing things. I'm worried about living with regret that I didn't lean in further, right? And so I think, and that comes with taking time to build skills that people can't take away from you.
Yeah, and that's where the importance or the connection really is between the Investor Fuel Club and Investor Fuel as a mastermind. Because
Yeah,
once you have a business and it's cash flowing and you're doing well and you have some systems in place, but it is going to be within a specific pipeline or maybe a couple of pipelines, right? And so
yeah,
it, if it did fall apart, the market shifted, whatever, it's you're going to need guidance to really help figure out what the next niche is, what the next place to go is, and you can get ahead of that through mastermind groups because mastermind groups, like people that haven't been a part of one of these. This isn't like Mike and a bunch of investors sitting around saying like, how do I do this in regards to like closing a deal? They know how to close a deal. What they're doing is really scaling their businesses, figuring out how to fix kind of holes in their corporate structure or their business structure so that they're not as it's not as much of a time suck. They're not as involved. It's really about fine tuning systems and processes and really getting creative with growing their business, not the A to Z basics.
yeah. And sometimes it is a basic. If like somebody's moving into an area they've never done before, they're like, "Hey, I can get a cheat code by just talking to this person that I know that already does it this way," right? And so there's a little bit of
Yeah,
everything. I would say, we meet quarterly. We're about to meet here in like 10 days from the time we're recording this. We meet quarterly. We have
yeah,
an online community that's pretty active, 365 days a year. But I've also found that a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there hard charging. After about 90 days, you're like pretty beat up sometimes. You're just like you need to recharge your batteries, right? And if you think of like a traditional corporate structure, like for larger corporations, they probably have a quarterly board meeting and they revisit their plans and they kind of revisit accountability and they get around people that can lift them up like, hey, yeah, rub a little dirt on it. You got beat up over here, but go get them. And that's some of what the mastermind does too. Is it's a quarterly opportunity to get together with your peers and recharge your batteries a bit.
yeah. No, and I mean, I've been working remotely for years, and it
Yeah.
gets sometimes it can get a little isolated, and it's really great, even like for me, going to the mastermind events to be able to not connect via Zoom, but to connect in person and have a conversation. It recharges you. I always leave those events like with a bunch of ideas, feeling creative, feeling kind of inspired because you're not just going through the minutia of your day. Like you're talking to people that are in the same business as you, and
Yeah.
they have different ideas than you have, and it's just a really inspiring kind of space, and I think very much worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So in terms of investor fuel, are there any like minimum requirements for people to be able to participate in the mastermind? Because it feels like pretty
It's
a pretty
evolved.
select
Yeah,
group.
it's evolved. I would say, at our very first meeting, we're actually coming up on this fall will be our 8-year anniversary. At our very first meeting, we had, I think, 24 people in the room. And we had one group, like it was one size fits all. Now we did only want people that were actively doing deals, but I seem to recall we had somebody doing 15 deals a year sitting next to somebody that's doing over 100 deals a year. and
Yeah,
um, and then it was the realization by the time we had the second meeting, we had broken out into a gold group and a platinum group, and ran that way for many years. The gold group was people doing between 10 and 50 deals a year, and our platinum group is 50 and up. And then go forward a couple of years, and we've got some guys that were in the group doing 4 or 5 deals a month, and next thing you know, they're doing 600 to 800 deals a year. And they were
whoa,
like, "Hey, where do we go from here?" And I was like, you know what? And there were other people doing over 100 deals a year, so we rolled out the Platinum Plus group, which is doing over 100 deals a year, over 2 million a year gross revenue, and we have that's probably 25 people in that group now. Um, and then a few years back, well, maybe about a year ago, when we started rebuilding the coaching program that I mentioned we call Investor Fuel Club, we built kind of a bridge group that's the silver group. So they have to have done at least a handful of deals in the past couple of years and a goal to start consistently doing deals. And so it's kind of not newbie coaching, but not ready for not consistently doing a deal a month yet, but close. And so yeah, so now at this point we've got something from the new person to the largest investors in the country.
I'm gonna time date this one, but I've been watching recently. I've been watching Welcome to Wrexham, and it's about getting promoted through the English soccer league. So I kind of feel like Investor Fuel's got a little bit of a like you do really well, you get promoted. You do really well, you get promoted
Yeah,
again. Are people getting
yeah.
demoted and you drop down a league if you're not doing enough deals?
Yeah, we definitely have had a lot of people that have moved up for sure. I mean, probably
Yeah.
half of our platinum group is people that used to be in the gold group and worked their way up. So yeah,
Yeah. No, it's great. We've seen at Launch Control, in all seriousness, we see this all the time where we have users that will come on or subscribers that will come on, and they're just starting a business. They haven't even done a deal, let alone many deals. Right. And
yeah,
as they move up subscription levels and they go from the light subscription to the core to the pro to the enterprise, they're we see them scaling up. What we don't see is them scaling back down. Like once you've gained
mm,
that knowledge, you have that ability, and you have the team in place, it really is an upward trajectory, and people tend to stay up with the exception of like a 2008 kind of event where everybody takes a gut punch, right? But yeah,
yeah.
people tend to stay up, and so you really can kind of move up and continue to network with your peers.
Yeah, there are people that have challenges. I mean, the last couple of years have been challenging. There's some people that their volume is down, but their profits might not be. And there's some people that, need to lick their wounds a little bit and pivot, and they have. And so that's just the reality of this industry and any industry. And so that happens, but we've also seen people that are, thriving like never before right now. It's always interesting in a market where some people are struggling and some are just like can do no wrong, right? It even reminds me of like when I was coming up. I've been in the business several years, and then the market turned, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, man, it's getting harder. But I see somebody just like roar past me that came out of nowhere, and it's just crazy how much of a mental game this is too. And so that's one of the benefits of the mastermind is I think people that are isolated out on their own, it's easy for them to say like, this is how this works, and it's like, well, things change over time, like that's not how it works anymore, and you don't have to have preconceived notions because you can learn from like the proverbial thing, like two heads are better than one, like 200 heads are way better than one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to Investor Club or Investor Fuel Club for just a second, if we can,
Yeah,
because again, like I said, it's a bridge to the mastermind group. I think everybody would want to start participating at the various levels, but I know a lot of our listeners aren't even at the base level of Investor Fuel yet. They're still getting their deal flow up. So Investor
yeah.
Fuel Club sounds like a really great fit. Could you kind of tell us,
Mhm.
like, walk us through like one example or one success story of a mentee and a mentor that you guys were able to match up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a cool thing that we actually have people that are in the mastermind now that started in one of our programs when they had done zero deals, and so well, you probably know. So, well, I don't know if I should say his name or not, but I will. Travis Oglesby, right? Because he used to
Oh, of course,
be.
yeah, he's one of my
So
favorites.
I knew
Actually, he's a great
Travis
guy.
when he had done zero deals, had never done a deal, and he just told me the other day that I won't say the number, but has a multiple 8-figure rental portfolio now. And for a while was doing 100 plus deals a year. And he's pulling back
Yeah,
now because, he doesn't need to. I mean, you get to a point where you're like, you don't have to work anymore. And so he's a perfect example. I remember because he had a couple
it's
partners when they started too. And
Travis has a cheat code though. Travis has that really slow, charming Southern draw. Like
yeah.
I'd buy anything from Travis.
Yeah. But yeah, we have other examples of folks like that that came in, and I think again, just surrounding themselves with the right people and being willing to just kind of go all in on it, right? And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So I for everyone listening, everything that we mentioned today, the Investor Fuel Club, Investor Fuel, Investor Machine, we'll put a link to your podcast as well, Mike. We're going to put links to everything in the show notes below. But I think the real takeaway from this for everyone listening is yeah, Mike has that seat at the table in the front of the beer hall, right? Like he's somebody who, like I said, has really pioneered a lot of these initiatives for the industry, and is a real trusted resource. But what often happens is that when people get to your stage, Mike, like they're only operating at the top. And what I love is that you've got offerings for people that have done zero deals and just really want to connect, for people that are at that early stage of growth and looking to scale, and really all the way up to, did you say 6 to 800 deals a year? That's got to
Yeah.
be an 8-figure business, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's big time money. So we're going from like zero to 8 figures, like everywhere in between. You've got resources to help people network, connect, scale, grow, improve. That's quite the offering. So definitely want people to be able to connect with you. Again, we'll put everything in the show notes below. We talked through quite a few things. Was there anything else for the Deal Nation audience that you want to get out there? Anything else you want to make sure people take away?
Yeah, for those that are newer, I don't want this to be like a big sales pitch, but for those that are newer, if you're interested, we do have an event coming up. I call it, and this is how you learn like how to collaborate with partners and stuff like that, whether you join the coaching program or not ultimately. But we do have a 5-day event that we call Investor Launchpad. So you hear all my brands: Investor Launchpad, Investor Fuel, Investor Machine. I didn't get too creative, but investorlaunchpad.com is a 5-day event that's coming up. It's about 60 to 90 minutes each day. And we kind of walk through like how to partner and collaborate with people to get off the ground, so you don't have to figure it all out yourself, and very much kind of the fabric of what we talked about here. So make sure you check that out. We do have an event coming up here shortly.
Yeah, I've actually got it saved on my calendar. I was gonna sneak in there.
Okay, cool.
All right. Well, Mike, I really appreciate the time. It's always great connecting with you, and I'm really happy that I was able to get you in front of our audience, because I think it's important for them to connect with you as well. So I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Talk soon.